03:12 a.m., June 14th, Barents Sea. 120 nautical miles off Murmansk. The water sits at 2 degrees Celsius. The wind blows 18 knots. On the surface, the sea rattles fishing trawlers. Deep below, USS Virginia moves silent at more than 250 meters. Inside the control room, the lights are dim. The air is tense, every sound magnified. The sonar screen ticks forward like a heartbeat. Fishing boats crawl at 12 knots, their signatures flat and dull. Then it happens. A sharp trace surges close to 30 knots, and just as quickly, it vanishes. No wake, no echo, gone. As if the ocean swallowed it whole. For one breath, the room freezes. Then the watch team snaps into motion. Bearings are checked. Contacts reevaluated. The picture rebuilt from fragments of sound. This is not a trawler, not a tanker. It feels like a predator moving with lights out. Public records call Virginia-class a hunter of the deep. But this contact suggests something darker, an Akula-class, Russia's steel shark of the Cold War. The seconds bleed away. 90, 60, 30. The line between hunter and hunted could flip at any moment. Someone mutters, "The real deal." Pencils tap nervously. Eyes dart across the screens. Outside the steel hull, something listens back. And if that vanished trace was indeed an Akula easing into position, the first move on the chessboard has already been played. USS Virginia slipped deeper into the black water, and the order was given silent running. Lights dimmed further. Voices dropped to whispers. Every movement inside the hull had to be calculated. Every sound avoided. Even a loose wrench clinking on steel could echo through the deep like a gunshot. The crew knew the rules. Passive sonar only, listening, not speaking. In ideal conditions, active sonar could light up the ocean like a flare, bouncing back a perfect image of what lurked out there. But it would also reveal their own position in an instant. For a submarine, that could be suicide. Now all they had was silence. Fans slowed, pumps throttled down, sailors moved in socks across the deck. The boat itself seemed to hold its breath. In the control room, the only rhythm was the tick of a clock and the faint scratch of pencils marking bearings on paper. Tension spread like a fog. 90 seconds. 75. 60. The count felt less like time and more like a fuse burning. The sailors stared at the sonar trace, praying for a hint, dreading a mistake. Silence was no longer absence. Silence became the sharpest weapon they had. And in that crushing dark, every second without a sound felt like borrowed life. The ocean is never silent. Even at midnight in the Barents, it hums with life and pressure. Whales call across the water in low, haunting tones. Currents scrape rocks against the seabed. Layers of warm and cold water bend sound in ways no chart can fully predict. For the sonar operators aboard Virginia, every noise is a puzzle piece. Some are harmless clutter, but clutter can hide a killer. A faint thud might be a drifting container or the hollow pulse of a submarine screw. Reports indicate that under favorable conditions, a towed array can distinguish bearings with high accuracy. But in rough seas and broken thermals, the ocean blurs truth into guesswork. Eyes bore into the glowing screen. Headphones press tight. One operator swears he hears a rhythmic beat. Another shakes his head. Voices are hushed. Every suggestion weighed against fear of being wrong. The longer the trace lingers, the more suspicion grows. Time drips away like water through a crack. 90 seconds. 75. 60. Each countdown mark feels like a hammer striking nerves. What if that echo is just a whale passing? What if it is the Akula closing in? Masked by natural noise, paranoia spreads through the control room. The sailors know that in the deep, hesitation kills. But rushing kills too. And somewhere out there, a shadow might already be listening back. Virginia kept her distance, gliding behind the contact like a predator holding its breath. Shadowing was part science, part art, close enough to track, far enough to remain unseen. Every adjustment of speed or depth risked exposure. And in these waters, one wrong move could flip hunter into hunted. The suspected Akula moved with purpose, at intervals. It shifted bearing, sudden turns sharp enough to test the shadows trailing it. Each maneuver was a question flung into the dark. Is someone following me? The ocean itself became a chessboard, and both submarines played the role of queens, powerful, dangerous, circling each other with silent intent. Inside Virginia's control room, tension thickened. Operators marked every bearing change, every fluctuation in sound. 90 seconds stretched into long minutes as they plotted moves and counter-moves. The captain's gaze was locked on the sonar trace, calculating probabilities like a gambler with too much at stake. Then came something unexpected. A faint echo, different from the steady rhythms of a propeller, pulsed irregularly in the water. Too clean, too deliberate, as if designed to be noticed. It was a whisper of bait, a sound that didn't belong. The room went still. The sailors exchanged glances. Was it an accident of nature or a trap? The chess match had reached its first deceptive move, and every instinct warned them the next decision could decide who vanished from the board. The ocean whispered a new sound. At first it came faint, then grew steady, a rhythmic thump, perfectly spaced, perfectly clean. To the untrained ear, it was the beat of a submarine's screw. To Virginia's sonar team, it looked like the contact they had been chasing had suddenly revealed itself. Adrenaline surged. Fingers hovered over switches, the urge to light up active sonar clawing at the back of every mind. One ping could confirm the target. One ping could also give away their own position. Reports indicate that in past Cold War encounters, acoustic decoys were deployed to confuse passive sonar. They produced artificial propeller noise, creating the illusion of a submarine where none existed. Under favorable conditions, even advanced arrays could be fooled long enough for the real vessel to slip away. Inside Virginia, the room vibrated with tension. 90 seconds? 75? 60? Was this the Akula's mistake, exposing itself too soon? Or was it bait, laid carefully to tempt them into breaking silence? The sound was almost too perfect. No cavitation, no irregularities, no natural flaws of a machine under pressure. The operators exchanged glances, each seeing the same doubt in the other's eyes. For a moment, the hunter nearly lunged, and then restraint held them back. The false trail dangled in the dark, waiting. One wrong decision, one burst of impatience, and Virginia would become the prey. The order never came. Fingers hovered, the temptation heavy, but the captain's voice cut through the room. Hold, do not ping. The weight of that command settled like lead. Everyone knew what it meant. Active sonar, under many conditions, could deliver a clear fix on the target, but it would also turn their own submarine into a beacon. Once revealed, the Akula would not hesitate. Inside the Virginia, silence pressed harder than the ocean itself. Sailors clenched jaws, tapped pencils against their knees, swallowed the urge to act. Every instinct screamed to confirm the contact, to strike first, to end the tension. But every man in that room also understood the ocean punished impatience. 90 seconds ticked to 60. The clock was merciless. Some eyes stayed glued to the glowing green display. Others flicked to the captain, searching for reassurance. He remained still, unblinking, as if daring the Akula to make the next move. The false echo continued, perfect and mechanical, dangling like bait. The restraint burned, but it was calculated. Patience could turn the trap against its maker. By refusing to act, the crew laid their own snare, forcing the enemy to reveal what was real and what was illusion. In that suffocating quiet, the lesson was etched deeper than steel: the side that waits wins. And soon, the first reversal on this underwater chessboard would belong to them. The captain made his choice, without a word. Virginia angled down, slipping deeper into the abyss. Pumps whispered, ballast shifted, and the submarine descended into colder, denser layers of water. In seconds, the faint echo that had betrayed her vanished from Akula's sonar screen. To the Russians, it seemed the American had disappeared, swallowed whole by the ocean. The Akula did not hesitate. Confident that the threat had blinked out, the steel shark began to circle back. Bearings changed, speed adjusted, its operators convinced they had shaken their tail. Now, it was their turn to hunt. But inside Virginia, the mood was different. The crew felt the hull groan as the pressure mounted, the kind of sound that gnaws at nerves. Silence pressed heavier than before. 90 seconds, 75, 60. Every second was a gamble. The deeper they sank, the more invisible they became, but the more one mistake could crush them. The chessboard had shifted. The hunter thought itself free, stalking boldly. Yet every move was now predictable. Akula, once the shadow, was exposing its rhythm, baring its flank. In the control room, men leaned over the glowing traces, recognizing patterns, whispering the truth only they could see. The roles were reversing. A heartbeat pounded in ears louder than sonar. 45 seconds, 30. Time itself seemed to chase them. A drumbeat counting down to collision. Out there in the dark. The Akula believed it was closing in. What it did not realize was that the real predator had simply sunk lower, sharper, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The sea held its breath. Two submarines, separated by only a handful of miles, crept toward each other through black water. Engines throttled low, propellers turning so slowly they barely disturbed the currents. Neither side wanted to be heard first. Inside Virginia, the control room pulsed with tension. Sailors leaned forward, eyes glued to displays, listening harder than human ears were meant to. The ticking of the clock hit 90 seconds, 75, 60. Each beat landed like a hammer on raw nerves. Heartbeats thudded louder than sonar. On the other side, Akula stalked cautiously, convinced it had shaken its pursuer. Its crew whispered of opportunity, yet doubts crept in. The silence was too perfect, the ocean too empty. Every time they tried to paint a picture, the shapes blurred. For hunters, that is the first taste of fear. Back on Virginia, patterns emerged, bearings aligned, movements predicted. The Americans now held the upper hand, tracing every sweep of the Akula's circle. Quietly, invisibly, the predator had become the prey. 45 seconds, 30. The duel reached its peak. A knife's edge moment where one wrong breath could collapse the game, and then nothing. The Akula slowed, shifted course, and pulled away. No clash, no explosion, just retreat, swallowed by distance and sea. Relief washed through Virginia. Shoulders dropped, breaths released. The clock still ticking, but the danger fading. In the end, the duel ended, not with fire, but with silence, and in silence. Victory belonged to the side patient enough to wait. The duel ended without a shot fired, but the lessons lingered like pressure in the deep. Silence, patience, and deception, three weapons as sharp as any torpedo. The Virginia had won not by striking first, but by refusing to be baited. In the world beneath the waves, waiting can be the deadliest move of all. Public records confirm the mechanics. Passive sonar listens, stretching ears across the ocean, catching whispers of propellers and currents. Active sonar, under many conditions, can light up the sea like daylight, yet it exposes the one who dares to use it. Reports also describe how acoustic decoys were deployed during the Cold War, clever imitations of screw beats designed to lure hunters into chasing ghosts. The ocean has always been an arena of shadows, where truth and illusion wrestle for control. Today, those lessons remain painfully relevant. NATO has increased patrols in the high north, responding to Russian activity in Arctic waters. U.S. submarines continue to exercise with allies, quietly practicing the same games of silence and patience that played out decades ago. Each maneuver, each patrol, is a rehearsal for a conflict everyone hopes will never erupt. In the end, silence is not emptiness. It is pressure, discipline, and power. And in the unforgiving deep, those who master silence decide who leaves the board and who vanishes without a trace. In the end, there were no torpedoes, no explosions, no shattered hulls drifting to the surface. Victory came in silence. The Virginia proved that domination beneath the waves is not always about firepower. It is about patience, discipline, and knowing when not to act. The Akula left the battlefield convinced it had escaped, unaware that it had been read, tracked, and cornered without a single weapon fired. That is the essence of underwater warfare. The side that masters silence decides the outcome. For the Americans, it was a reminder that restraint is not weakness. It is control. Every second of silence was a calculated move. Every delay a step toward victory. The duel showed that intelligence and patience can achieve what brute force cannot. But the ocean is never finished. The game continues. In the Barents, in the Arctic, in the South China Sea, new hunters rise, new shadows prowl, and the stakes remain as high as ever. The silent duel may have ended, but the board is never empty. And so the closing words are simple, sharp, and true. Beneath the ocean, silence is not weakness. It is the sharpest blade of all. If this story pulled you in, don't let it end here. Like, share, and subscribe, so every scenario can stretch beyond imagination and linger long after the screen fades. Remember, this is storytelling, not a playbook. No commander, sailor, or soldier should ever gamble with lives in reckless games of intimidation. The purpose is to illustrate, to dramatize, to warn, never to instruct. Any resemblance to classified missions or individuals is purely coincidental. The intent is not to mislead or glorify war, but to spark curiosity, reflection, and a deeper appreciation for how fragile modern conflict can be.